Hello, church. It's so good to be with you this morning or this afternoon or wherever you're catching the Take 5 in your week. I just share a couple of funny things that have happened recently. If you're watching this from somewhere other than the state of Florida, just know it's November and it is still blooming hot here, man. It's brutally hot. I've heard from a number of folks that catch us further north, and they're sending me pictures of fall leaves and talking about 60s, and I hate you, just for the record. The second thing I want to tell you is we've been in the middle of wedding season, and I just want to take a personal moment here and thank Jerry and Kelly Butts for the honor of officiating their daughter Dana's wedding this past weekend to Ryan Bastine, and just what an amazing young man he is. And Dana came into this world about the same time I started my ministry. So we have been following each other for the last 24, 25 years, and she's been a gift in my life. And what an honor it is to walk somebody through the entire phase of their spiritual development in the church, all the way to the altar where they marry their forever person. So just a big shout out to the Buttses for their hospitality. So we're going to do something a little bit different today than we have in the past with Take 5. So we're done with chapter 1. Paul has walked us through salutations. He's walked us through some advice and what it means and what glory looks like and all these kind of things. He's about to turn the page and begin to talk about humility in chapter 2. So I thought I would just do kind of a brief overview about humility, since it's such a big part of chapter 2. And then we will get into the specific texts next week. So let me begin the day by telling you that I believe that it is far better for you to bend a knee in humility to God than to have God bend your knee in humility. Because I believe he will do that eventually for all of us, that God abhors the proud. And so he will bend our knees eventually. So better to choose that on your own. So let me share a passage from the Old Testament with you. It comes from the book of Micah, chapter 6, beginning in verse 8. It says, "He," meaning God, "has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. God desires us to be upright, righteous men and women in how we go about our day in our lives. And that we are to love mercy, that we are not to have moments of mercy or situational mercy, but we in general are to be seeking places where we can extend God's mercy and love into others. But the last piece of advice is that we are to walk humbly with our Lord, right? So one of the mistakes that a lot of people make when they think about humility is that the moment you begin to think you're humble, you've probably crossed into a place that you're no longer humble, right? So humility is really hard to get to. It's a lot like nailing Jello to a tree. It's very wiggly. It's hard to comprehend in some places. But the real truth is that the opposite of humility is not pride, although pride is a portion of that. The opposite of humility is selfishness. So when I make life about me, that's all selfishness. When I make life about others, then that's humility. So to live humbly, to walk humbly with our Lord, is to be other driven. It's what we've been preaching about in our prayer series the last couple of weeks, is what does it look like to be other driven? What does it look like to love one another, to do all the one another's that Jesus talks about? This is humility. One of the things you know about me is I grew up around sports. I spent all my professional life in sports and all working with athletes and all those kind of things. And so, humility is a rare trait in the sports world. And I think part of the reason is that they have not been able to figure out the difference between confidence and arrogance. So I would say of Christian people, I want you to be confident. I want you to be confident in your faith. I want you to be confident in your salvation. I want you to have the kind of confidence that allows you to walk into the throne room of grace with boldness and stand before a holy God as a righteous, upright person. I want you to be confident. But arrogance comes, I think, sometimes when we're trying to fill a spiritual gap or fill some sort of void in our life. And so we have to cover over that vacancy, that emptiness with arrogance, because we don't have the humility to admit, I'm just not very good at that. I actually stink at that. So I think there's a fine line in all aspects of life between being confident and arrogant. So this is what I want to call you to as we begin to unpack chapter 2 in the book of Philippians, recognizing where Paul writes from, recognizing who the audience is. We do want to live a life humble and to live a life of confidence. So is it possible for us to live a life of confident humility, trusting in who God is and who he created us to be, that we are called to see others as greater than ourselves? I hope this has helped you kind of have a foundation as we jump into chapter 2 next week. Know how much I love you. Can't wait to be with you again.